Hi, this is Raul Aguilar with Brainy Ideas, here to show you a tip calculator tutorial for the iPhone. First, we're going to start in Xcode by starting a new project that's a Windows-based application. Notice that we don't use the core data for storage option. We're going to name this project TipCalc. First, we start by double-clicking on the main window.nib file, and then we see the four windows appear. We'll be dropping objects or views from the library dialog onto the window. We're basically building a GUI for our page. So here we set the title, now we're setting the bill field and then the text field for the bill. Let's go ahead and double click into it and set it for bill, and then set the title, tip calculator. It's a good idea to reposition your labels as you build them along the way. We're going to add a button next, and then jump ahead to add all the fields so we can skip all the details of adding the views. So we've added a sad, fine, and happy set of buttons so that we don't really have to think about sliding or using the slider. But we're keeping the slider in place so that we can actually adjust the percents between 10, 15, and 20%. Let's go ahead and add a new file. This will be a controller class. We're selecting the iPhone OS Cocoa Touch class, Objective-C class, and notice we're selecting NS object for the subclass. Then we click next, and then the file name will be controller.m. So we're going to start by adding the IB outlet interface lines on the controller objects, and here I've placed a typo called, it's the IB outlet is supposed to be a UI text field, and we'll see how that can be corrected later. So we jump ahead to add the other IB outlets and then an IB action of calculator tip. Notice that the sender is an ID type. Just before we save, notice that we have at the bottom of the IB outlet list a UI slider. Next, we're going to the control.m file implementation. Notice that we have an import of controller.h, and the first method we're going to throw in here is an instance void of awake from nib. Here we've added the two additional open parens and close parens, which are an error in Xcode. It's a normal syntax in Java, and we'll see how to correct that later. And next we added the bill become first responder. That allows the bill text UI field to actually get the keyboard when the application first starts from nib. And next we've added some code from onto calculate tip with a parameter ID sender. The sender is actually the view that caused the event to occur, which called this method. And notice we're setting the percent value initially to 15%, and then the last value, in the last condition, we have the slider value being set to the percent. Next, we're going to go back to the nib window and populate the minimum, maximum, and initial values for the slider at 10%, then 20%, and the initial value to 15%. So okay, let's go ahead and save and then return back to our code. Notice that we have additional code for the tip value and pay value. We do the build and go. As expected, the errors appear and our open parens and close parens need to be corrected. So we save, build, and go, and see the error disappear. the error disappeared on that, but now we still have Bill being undeclared, and we see that we had only UI text for the IB outlet and not UI text field, which is the correct notation. So we save, build and go, and look for the errors. We see we still have a percent value error here. It's the code, Xcode is saying that it's unused, and so we'll go ahead and use it down below at the tip value calculation. Do build and go again, and we still have 4 additional errors where percent is an unknown variable, so we'll set that to percent value. After this change or correction, the code should be running just fine, but we're still missing something. We'll have the views appear, but and when we type from the keyboard of the laptop to number 100 and press sad, fine, and happy, nothing happens. There's still something missing. The connections are not present. So we open the document dialog and we drag and drop the object from the library dialog onto the document window. Then we set the class to controller so that the object can be an instance of the controller class. Here we're setting now the IB outlets to the individual views on our Windows dialog, and it turns out I misconnected the Find outlet to the wrong location. It's supposed to be to the Find view, and we're connecting Pay now, and then we connect percent. The percent is being used to update the slider value in real time as the user moves the slider. So we're almost done here, and we do need to connect the slider itself to its own IB outlet and then the tip. And the last step remaining has to do with handling events for the individual buttons. So we click on sad or the sad button, and then we choose to connect the touchdown event onto the controller and just set it to the calculate tip method. And then we select fine and then do the same. We apply the sender to that, to the controller calculate tip. And now for the happy button. Our last step will be to connect the slider event value changed to the IB action in the controller object for the controller tip. Here now we're setting the percent.text equal to the slider value, and we're using a similar structure that we used to set the tip text. In this case, we're setting the NS string with format for the percent value to the percent value. And next, within our if conditions, we want to set the slider position according to the button that we pressed. For the sad button, it would be the 10%. And we do the same thing for the fine button and for the happy button. Next, we set the Bill UI text field keyboard to a number pad so that when we send focus to it, the number pad will appear and we just enter numbers. Then we're going to go ahead and rearrange the furniture for the individual labels. Now we're setting the labels to be right aligned, and then next we'll be looking for a way to hide the keyboard from the page. We find here on the web sender resign first responder, which will work for any sender, and so we applied it on line 21 with Bill resign first responder. This is Raul Aguilar with Brainy Ideas. Thanks for watching.